Riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that week has passed. Here's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Why I Hate This Album. I am your host, Garrett Harvey. With me, as always, is co-host extraordinaire, Timothy Richardson. Tim, how you doing?
Very, very sad.
I bet you are. I, too, am quite melancholy. Care to tell the folks at home why that might be?
That is because we are unfortunately talking about the Fray's debut album, How to Save a Life, released September 13th, 2005.
Now, I hate to hit you with a question right off the bat, Tim, but is there a chance the title of that might be sarcastic?
It's unclear. I think so.
This music does not inspire the will to live.
Yeah, it is suicide-inducing. I can't even call it rock.
I would call it a suicide soundtrack. But let's ask the far more important question. Do you hate it?
Yes.
Wow.
Do you?
I don't know.
I'm going to get you there.
I'm on the precipice as it is. A heavy breeze is going to get me there.
Oh. Just like when you were 12.
That was a condition. I don't like it. Good God, I don't like it. But I don't know if I can hate it. Well, you know what? That's why we do the show. Is this the first time you've been frayed, Tim?
I've heard, I think, 3 of these songs before, most notably the title track, because that was everywhere briefly whenever I was in college. But other than that, I had really no knowledge of them until this week. I think my exposure might be Zach Braff's fault.
Yeah, much like many things in today's modern society, this can be blamed on Zach Braff.
Have you heard of this before?
I didn't know anything about the band. Couldn't have told you who sang that How to Save a Life. However, upon listening to this album, I can say at some point in my life, I definitely listened to this whole album start to finish because I knew a few more songs than I'd care to admit. Not a Smash Mouth situation. I didn't have like a burned CD, but I must have downloaded it at some point thinking, we're going to get into it, Tim, but I apparently had a real emo phase. That must come as a huge shock to you.
Oh, you were such a sad boy.
Yeah, apparently. I definitely was Fray adjacent.
Yep.
Like I said, I didn't know who the fuck they were, but definitely had heard most of the songs on here. I can't say that I heard more than the first 30 seconds of most of them.
Well, part of the problem, though, is a lot of these songs sound very familiar.
That could be what's happening.
Yeah.
I could think I've heard many of them, but really I've just heard the one.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, you could take all of the choruses and all of the verses and just switch them all around, and you'd have the same songs.
Yeah. All right, well, let's not waste another moment. Let's find out how we came to get Frayed. Take us through the journey that brought us such a sad and boring band.
Well, these guys, everyone in this band, for the most part, grew up in Denver, Colorado. The main singer and co-main songwriter, the Garrett, if you will, Isaac Slade, he was the son of missionaries, and he lived in Guatemala for a bit while his parents preached the good news of Jesus Christ to the faithless, assuring the converts a place in heaven forever. He started singing at age 8 and then playing piano at age 11. Grew up in a very religious household, obviously, and he wasn't...
Seems most of them did.
Yes, definitely. He wasn't allowed to listen to quote-unquote secular music.
Oh, that's alarming.
Yeah, but he talked about some songs that he stumbled upon that really inspired him. The main one was Swallowed by Bush.
Oh.
He said, as a boy, Swallowed was my siren song. I was a sheltered church child, and here's this man talking about living life his way, doing whatever he felt like doing. Bush wasn't allowed in my house either, which made it that much more mysterious.
That's not what... I mean, it's been years since I heard Swallowed. Not for long, but it's been years. That's a ghost of episode future for sure, but that's got some sexual innuendo, right?
I believe so, yes. But he also lists his other influences as Nine Inch Nails, Queen, Radiohead, R.E.M., Counting Crows, U2, and Led Zeppelin.
Boy, that's a weird smattering. I can hear the Counting Crows.
I agree. But other than that, I would argue Coldplay and maybe the Shins, but the rest of that sounds like horseshit.
Well, I mean, you're listing contemporaries.
Well, sure, but I hear very little Led Zeppelin in their music, I guess is my point.
No shit.
What does he look like to you? I thought like Professor X James McAvoy.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. I was going to say Billy Corgan's stunt double.
Yeah, or a particularly pretentious infant. Anywho, everyone in this band was super into church, and they were all in worship bands, which is becoming a running theme on this show. Apparently, there are only 4 or 5 types of awful bands, like some sort of weird Joseph Cambell thing. You can only be one of 5 terrible bands.
Oh, yeah, there's only 5 core categories of bad music.
Most of them went to Faith Christian Academy in Denver, and the rotating cast in this story played in some of the same presumably shitty Christian worship bands growing up.
Oh, they're shitty.
In 2002, Isaac and Joe King, the main guitarist and the other songwriter, met back up in a record store and began quote-unquote jamming. I'm using that term very loosely because I imagine it was terrible. And then they began writing songs. Joe King was originally a piano player, but he stopped playing in middle school, and he explained why. The coolest guys in my 8th grade class all played guitar, and I wanted to fit in.
Valuable life lesson.
Yeah.
Don't do what you love. Do what makes you cool.
Right.
Whatever you can do to fit in, that's what you should be focusing on.
Yes. High school poetry.
Well, I didn't have that advice then. I wasn't listening to the Fray.
The early band that formed after these two guys met had a rotating cast as well. The only notable ones to me really were Ben Wasaki, maybe, who is their drummer to this day, and Caleb Cable Car Slade, Isaac's younger brother, who they promptly asked to leave the band because he apparently wasn't a particularly good bass player.
Yeah, more on that in a bit.
So after that, they didn't have a permanent bassist, and they just had touring bass players, and the other members of the band filled in on bass for the actual records.
It's the Bob Rock approach to bassists. I'm sure that asshole was sniffing around. Hey, you guys need a bassist?
According to local Denver legend, their name came about whenever they couldn't decide what to call it, and they just put scraps of paper in a hat.
That's the best possible way to come up with a band name.
Yes. They're all very Christian, clearly.
Right.
But
good Christian boys.
Yes. According to the Interwebular Network, the band decided against being an entirely religious band because they believed that God had called them away from Christian music genre and into a secular market.
Wait, hold on. I didn't see this in the dossier. So they believe that Christ, much like our former president George Bush, spoke directly to them.
Yes.
And in this instance, that he told them, do not make the music of my faith.
Right, make money. Yeah, and that seems like something, honestly, that God tells a lot of people to do pretty often. He, or I guess I should say he or she, sorry Leans, often tells the faithful to make lots of money instead of doing God stuff.
Right, or make lots of money in the name of doing God stuff.
Sure, duping the faithful.
Well, I mean, you've got to plant that seed, Tim. You got to plant that seed, make that donation, and then watch the miracle grow.
How much money would you like? I want to belong to your faith.
However much you can spare. Now, Tim, I want you to know that the larger the seed you plant, the more miracles God will bestow upon you.
I'm going to get so many miracles.
You just take that money and you send it, cashier's check or money order would be fine. Send it to my house. The Lord spoke to me, and I need a G4 Gulfwing jet.
Garrett,
yes.
After we finish this episode, I have a business, or really a podcast proposition for you.
Duping the religious?
Yes, doing that, but aimed at our audience instead of me.
I don't think we should discuss this on air.
Yes. I found a ton of quotes talking about their decision to not be a Christian band. He said at first, I used to write all Christian lyrics. None of my friends outside the church understood any of my songs because we had a different set of vocabulary. So I went home and threw away all of those songs. He says, God is the most important thing, but I'm a musician first. This is my job. We're not preachers, we're not pastors, we're not missionaries.
I mean, he was a missionary, though.
Well, his parents were, yeah.
I think by virtue, you're in there.
Well, yeah, you're getting dragged along.
This is the message that I got from the researchers. Despite a strong religious upbringing, kind of across the board, they just said, yeah, but money's better, right?
Yeah.
God would want us to make money, not worship him.
Yes.
I mean, I tend to agree.
It's on page 46 of your Bible. In late 2002, after they've kicked their brother out, they released the Movement EP, and then they released the Reason EP in 2003. Those EPs got them a local following in Denver, but radio stations there refused to play their music, could not figure out why, other than it's terrible. So they sent, I think, 8 songs to the radio stations, all of which got rejected, and then they sent Cable Car, which is on this album, and we will be getting very much into, and apparently that was good enough to get on the radio. So I guess that's a sort of a good life lesson. It doesn't matter how terrible you are. If you just keep sending the radio stations bad songs, eventually you'll get lucky.
Kind of makes me wonder, if you were to do that today, I don't think there's anybody at the radio station to even receive that mail.
Probably not.
Pretty sure it's all just kind of done by a computer. From what I understand, your Bob FMs, your Jeff FMs, whatever the fuck, the local popular radio, they're all just nationally produced. Like, here's the playlist, here's what you're doing, and then all of that music has already been settled upon in large board meetings by major corporations that then just distribute it to local markets.
That sounds
I don't even
right.
think this model exists anymore.
I'm sure there's a radio station that's still doing this kind of shit. You probably can't do that anymore, but I would argue you shouldn't have been able to do that in 2003 or whenever these idiots did it.
Why is that?
Because they suck, Garrett. They suck.
Oh, well, yeah, they do suck.
On the strength of their awesome music, they signed to Epic in December of 2004, and they released this album less than a year later. I did not do any more research.
In case anybody's wondering and they're not familiar with this is a straight-up emo band.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah, they claim not to be. They don't like that term, but yes.
Do they have an alternative? I guess they might want to be called alternative music.
I mean, we should establish a genre for them, and I have a couple of suggestions. It's wine rock, but there's not real rock in there. You've described something before as methadone rock.
Ooh, yeah.
There's straight emo, we could call it. To be honest, it's so earnest but poorly developed. It sounds like Blink-182 if all the songs were Adam's song. These are songs that are written by a guy in high school, not to mention any names, but a guy in high school who you're on a camping trip with him, and he wants to discuss like the terms of your platonic relationship.
It's the terms of your platonic relationship.
Right. I was terrible.
You still are.
I would like to discuss the terms of our platonic friendship.
Yeah, that always turns pretty sexual quickly, so I'd rather we don't. I don't think you know what platonic or friendship means. All right, let's just move away from this terrible history of this garbage band and get right into it. I think we already have. Let's talk some general thoughts. Monotonous.
Yes, definitely.
Unrelenting.
Yep.
Borderline crying while singing.
Yeah, emo.
So truth bomb time.
Okay.
I had a real emo streak, and the timing of this came out in what, 2005?
Yeah.
To me, this is like kind of the tail end of a phase of music that began somewhere around 1999. I'll give you some bands that I may or may not have listened to somewhat regularly from that era. Matchbox 20. I may have owned the first Train album.
That sounds right.
Coldplay, back when everything was still yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one that's super embarrassing. Guster. Do you know Guster?
I don't.
That's okay. You didn't miss much. This one you don't seem to know, but I think everyone else will. Five for Fighting.
I have Five for Fighting references because I have listened to several of their songs for this episode.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I used to listen to them unironically. Boy, I didn't want to get into it yet because I have a lot of notes about this in the song by song, but it has to be said. This week has been tough for me, Tim. Typically, the standard week for us is I listen to the music, either just through sheer repetition or really understanding everything about it. I come to hate the album. And that largely is still true here, but there was a fun added twist for me where I really came to hate myself. And I didn't think that it was possible to hate me more. Well, I heard a yeah in there. I'm going to jump right past that. This really helped me to kind of piece together the timeline of that high school boy that wrote just horrible high school poetry. I always wondered, how did I get from there to here? I definitely was just terrible. I thought I'd snapped out of it kind of by 17, 18.
Man, I knew you at 22.
Okay, that's a gross exaggeration. I mean, I was listening to Five for Fighting my freshman year of college. I was into it, man.
I think that does sort of relate back to this Isaac character. He grows up in an overly Christian household that doesn't let him listen to secular music. I can sort of relate to that to some degree. I had fairly limited access to music until I was 14 or so, just based on where I grew up.
Right. The state censored your media intake.
Right. As a result, I sort of went through various phases of liking genres, right? Everyone has the Led Zeppelin phase. I had a fairly long phase where I loved punk rock because it was music that I'd never heard before. It was just a new sound.
Sure.
It's lucky that I didn't start a band during one of those phases, so none of them are forever associated with me, right? So I didn't start a band when I was into punk rock, so I'm not permanently on the record as being or having been a punk rock fan. It strikes me that he didn't get into music until later in his life, and so he had this stunted thing where he got into the equivalent of emo, and so that was just his musical touch point at the time he started a band, and so that's just now what he does.
That makes a lot of sense. If I understand you correctly, because he had such a limited scope of understanding of what music is and could be, he wrote his high school poetry, and then, he had that background, and then he wrote these terrible lyrics, so this is what comes out. You almost can't blame the guy.
Yeah, but it seems like something that I hope he's embarrassed of, but I don't think he is.
If I had made millions of dollars off of my high school poetry, I don't think I'd be embarrassed either.
Garrett, someday you will have millions of dollars based on that poetry, and you better still be embarrassed of it.
I'll be so embarrassed.
Yeah.
To me, you're almost making an argument to not hate this album.
Well, sort of. I'm explaining why this could possibly exist. If you had have come up with an emo band to back you reciting your poetry, I would understand why that exists, and I personally would love it, but I don't think it should be loved.
Well, I wouldn't really have an excuse because I did not grow up in an overly religious family, and I had access to all the music. I was listening to the greatest music there was from like the age of 5 on.
Except for briefly with that Smash Mouth and the rest.
Oh, except for, once my father stopped directing me towards new music and I began making my own personal choices from the ages of 15 to apparently 19.
Yeah. So this band, first of all, is so goddamn pretentious. Let me read to you a list of song subjects according to them.
Oh, this is great. Hit me.
Happiness, sadness, death, the problem of evil, relationships, and war. The problem of evil?
That does not come through in this album. Also, isn't it a little redundant to say that evil's a problem?
It's not, because some of us don't think it is.
Oh, you find evil to be the solution?
Sort of.
Care to elaborate?
No. It is refreshing to have a whole album without a single track that has featuring somebody on it.
You know what? I'll give them credit there. It is just a fucking band that made an album and nobody had to walk into the studio and help them with it.
Thanks, the Fray.
We've talked a lot about if I had started an emo band with my poetry from high school. And Tim, on a previous episode, and we're charging ahead with Texas Toast. Don't worry, folks. That country pop album is right around the corner.
First track already recorded.
God, it's good. And we don't need you, Joey Moy. We don't need you. I didn't know you could even get a restraining order at 2 a.m., but I guess he knows a guy. Point being,
it's pronounced
we don't
moi.
Need you.
Moi.
I don't think it is. That got me thinking. I've got this whole book of high school poetry, and it's as good or better than anything written in this garbage album. All we really need, Tim, is a catchy name. So I sat down, I spent no more than 12, 14 hours on this, and I started working on some possible band names for our emo pop duo. I'd like to read them and see what you think.
All right.
Morning Shade.
Okay.
3:15.
Okay.
Blinded by Sight.
I like that one.
Bottomless Soup. Terror Birds.
I'm not sure that really has the emo ring to it, but I like it.
Yeah, it's a good one, though. Melted Mirrors.
Ooh.
Although that feels more like a single.
Yeah.
Where we're melting away the facade of how we view ourselves and really getting honest with each other.
It doesn't have to be about that. It could be about anything. We just call it.
I'd like it to be about that.
Okay.
Anyway, These Aren't Wigs. That one's really fun because we wear wigs and clearly you can see our hair under the wigs.
Right. Right.
But we don't acknowledge that they're wigs. And then my personal favorite, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm more of a terror bird man myself, but rinse and repeat works.
To your point, I don't know how emo Terror Birds is. It could be. I mean, My Chemical Romance doesn't certainly sound particularly emo. I guess romance is in the title. I kind of like Bottomless Soup.
Yeah, you love soup, though.
I do love soup.
Yeah, always eating soup.
It's the only thing I can eat that fills me up.
You're so broken inside.
Yes. We could also go with These Aren't Wigs. Anything jump out to you?
I think I like the soup one. Can we incorporate soup? So we could have a These Aren't Wigs tour, or we could name our first album These Aren't Wigs and then tour under that with the wigs. But then if we get tired of the wigs, we're not married to that idea.
Cool.
Because my head gets hot.
You have an unusually hot head. There's some good ones in here, though. 3:15, Blinded by Sight.
Yeah, Blinded by Sight, I feel like sounds more like an album or a song.
Yeah, I also worried that people might feel it's too manufactured. A little too on the nose.
Well, these guys seem to be getting away with it. They've got all sorts of
it's 2018, Tim. People are a lot more savvy.
They are not.
No, they are not. Okay, so let's say it's between Blinded by Sight, Bottomless Soup, Rinse and Repeat.
Yes. With our first album being the Wigs thing.
Yeah, the Wigs thing is settled. These Aren't Wigs is our first album.
You've already bought the Wigs.
Oh, yeah. I had the Wigs. But all right, well, we'll say Bottomless Soup for now.
Okay.
Listeners, if there's one I read there that you guys like more, just let us know. We don't want to waste our time. And the wrong band name can set you off on the wrong foot, and then this whole thing is pointless.
How about this?
No one will ever hear.
Let's write all of these down on tiny little pieces of paper. We'll put them in a hat, and we'll just pick one. That's how band names come about.
Apparently, that is how band names come about, but I'm just too married to these to do that. Like I said, I spent, no more than 12 or 14 hours doing this.
Yeah. All of these songs sound very similar. It's an extremely boring album. And on the second half, just to stay entertained, you have to make up wild stories about these songs to the point that I now understand what all those genius lyric annotators or crazy people, they might not be crazy. They might just be super bored.
No, the difference is they don't have any reason to be listening to this music. We at least have a goal. It's a stupid goal, but it's a goal.
Yeah.
I tend to look at it slightly differently. I think in the absence of a clear narrative in your songs, anything that you and I may derive from listening to the lyrics is just as valid as what the band may say it's about themselves.
Oh, I think if they're not going to have anything to say, it's our responsibility to assign these songs meaning.
That's the right way to look at this. Having said all that, I'm trying to think, is there anything we've left off here? All of it's super depressing, and almost every single song is about a woman that he wants to be with, wants to not be with, isn't with currently, but would like to be.
Or is on the precipice of being with, but it may or may not happen.
It is mind-numbing. So let's do it. Let's get into the song by song. Track number 1, She Is.
Now you're not here, and I'm not there. It's like
we start this album off with what sounds to me like a Wallflowers ripoff. And
oh, good call.
Yeah, the intro music tricked me into thinking I was about to listen to an energetic and up-tempo album.
Not on this week. The opening lyrics to this song make it sound like this guy's trying to backdoor his way into... Are you familiar with the zip code rule, Tim?
No.
So the zip code rule is a fictitious rule made up possibly in an American Pie movie, which would fit perfectly with this podcast, where if you're in different zip codes from your significant other, it is not cheating. So the lyrics that make me think this, don't get me wrong, I cannot wait for you to come home. For now, you're not here, I'm not there, it's like we're on our own.
Yeah.
Actual opening lyrics to the song.
Yeah, I'll buy it. The internet across the board thinks this is a very deep song.
How?
This seems like the world's most generic love song. If you were to take all love songs ever written, strip them of any unique features, and then take the average of all of those, this might be what you get.
As if you had asked a robot to write a love song.
Yeah, and then I thought, maybe this is really genius. Going back to the Joseph Cambell of it all, maybe it's a love song archetype that's just distilled down to its base form. It is the barest bones love song you could possibly imagine.
So what you're saying is that much as Joseph Campbell wrote about how there's really only, 3 different types of stories? 5 different types of stories?
5, yeah.
Okay. You're saying that this is the song version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
They wrote an outline for a love song so that other people would know the correct format for making good art.
Well, that's not why they did it, but that is in fact what they did, yes.
Makes total sense to me. Did you realize that he proposes in this song?
I didn't know.
Well, he doesn't necessarily propose. So I really parsed these lyrics, and most of them don't really add up to anything, as you've mentioned. But what I kept coming back to is, this is going to bring me to my knees. And I was like, what? What does that mean? Is it destroying him? No. That's him proposing.
Really? I imagined it was him falling to his knees in the rain and shouting, no.
It's because you're still thinking about that Joseph Campbell. But no, apparently because their love is so perfect that eventually he just knows that he's going to have to lock that shit down. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
And I pieced that together through several blogs I read.
I hope they were written by him.
If you want to ruin the internet for yourself, go read a bunch of blogs about the Fray.
I have, man. Oh God, have I.
Just about anything else is a better time than that.
Let's move on. Track number 2, Over My Head, Cable Car.
Wish you were a stranger, I could disengage. Just say that we agree and
The intro sounds like it's their bad impression of a Backstreet Boys song with poor production values.
I thought it sounded like their poor impression of a Justin Bieber song.
Yeah.
I never knew. It sounds like, what do you mean?
It does. This, though, is an incredibly dickish song to include on this album. Do you know what this is about?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fucking great. This is my favorite song.
Yeah. In the history of the band, we talked about Isaac essentially had to kick his brother Caleb, or Cable Car, out of the band because he was in over his head, i.e. he was not up to par with his bass playing.
That's not what I thought. Go ahead.
I've done a fair amount of research as to why that was, and they said it simply came down...
No. You got the reason right. But the Over My Head, I didn't think was a reference to Caleb being in over his head.
Oh, I thought so.
Well, we'll dig into the lyrics in a minute.
Okay,
Continue
fair
the main story.
Right, so this is essentially the same story as Rich Robinson on the first Black Crowes album. He was really young, he was not the best guitarist at the time, he was like 15, but he's currently very, very good at it because they didn't kick him out of the band and he stuck with it. But writing a song like this about kicking your brother out of the band and putting it on your debut album is incredibly shitty, especially because this is like a year after he got kicked out of the band. And it seems like something that would be acceptable to release on a 5th album as an inside joke about how your brother sucked at playing bass whenever you started, if you didn't kick him out, and if he then became good at his instrument. And then to top it off, it's written by Isaac and Joseph, but most of this song appears to be sung from the perspective of Caleb.
That's where you and I differ.
Okay.
I think it's sung from Isaac's perspective. My reasoning for thinking that is these lyrics. Let's rearrange. I wish you were a stranger. I could disengage. Just say that we agree, then never change. Soften a bit until we all just get along.
I agree. I think that does sound like it's sung from
Okay, let me
Isaac's...
continue.
Okay.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head. Obviously, you're saying that is from Caleb's perspective. Mm-hmm. I think that it's actually from Isaac's perspective, being because of what I just read, he seems to be like overwhelmed with having to deal with kicking his own brother out. He's not prepared to be able to deal with this level of confrontation.
I think he's fine with it. I think he's a sociopath. I think he's a terrible person who didn't mind at all and then was just like, hey, I can get a song out of this.
Well, quite a song. And what's amazing is even if he even remotely tried to hide it, did you know Cable Car was his nickname growing up?
Yes, he loves anagrams.
Yeah, so, no, that's neither an anagram.
Cable is an anagram of Caleb. Podcast over.
Yeah, we're getting close. I'm going to start doing it with Batman instead.
Excellent.
I mean, maybe you're right, Tim. If you're right, then this is the meanest song in the planet because the title literally is Over My Head, in parentheses, talking about you, Caleb.
The way I interpreted it was over my head, and then they put that in parentheses to say, look, we're not over our heads. We're doing just fine. This guy.
Talking about Caleb.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I mean, it works, though. Turns out being incredibly mean and singing like you're weeping sells you 2 million copies of a single.
Oh, 3 million.
Oh, excuse me. My data must be out of date.
Yeah.
And somebody down at the lab's getting quite the thrashing.
Yeah, you should cane him good. I know exactly who it was. It was Brad, wasn't it?
Oh, God damn it, Brad.
Yeah, there's
I'd
never
fire
been
him.
a good Brad, starting with Bradley Noel up to now across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I'd fire him, but it's more fun to just torture him.
This was also nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals.
It's weirdly specific, once again proving the Grammys are pointless.
Did you see who they lost it to? My Humps by the Black Eyed Peas.
Are you sure?
I am.
They lost to My Humps?
Yes.
My Lovely Lady Lumps?
Yes, those. They are lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention, there's a couple of lines that I don't think fit in with this song at all, or at least with their stated meaning. With 8 seconds left in overtime, she's on your mind, she's on your mind.
I have the same question you do.
Yeah, I turned to Genius Lyrics for help, and they just attempted to explain the concept of sports and the concept of overtime to me.
That's not the confusing part. No. I mean, it's not super clear, but I mean, let's ask the question. Who is she?
Yeah.
You got Isaac and you got Cable Car. Cable Car, you're out of the band. You're in over your head. Get out. And then we start talking about how she's on your mind. No idea who she is. We have a little bit of an Ed Sheeran type conspiracy going on here, only I guess in reverse. So apparently this song is quite similar to a song by the Chainsmokers. There's a stay tuned. That band's terrible. They have a song called Closer. I guess in 2016, the Fray ended up being credited as co-writers for Closer because it sounded so goddamn similar to this. Also, Ed Sheeran, that guy has a problem. As we speak, he is being sued by the estate of Marvin Gaye for stealing Let's Get It On.
Yes,
and I hope he loses.
Also, as we speak, he is currently either planning or enacting a theft of somebody else's music, allegedly.
Of course. So they ended up getting co-writing credit for copying a song that, in my opinion, didn't actually sound very similar, but good on them for getting extra money. Okay, track number 3, How to Save a Life.
To begin with, it fucking drives me crazy that they start this song by giving step 1 and then don't give any subsequent steps.
What?
The first words of this are step 1.
Oh, that's really confusing because the whole point of the song is that they don't know how to save a life.
My OCD does not like you saying step 1 and then dropping that literary device.
I have to assume that bothers nobody else but you.
But I always thought this song was about suicide because this is obviously one of them that I'd heard a number of times before.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it is at all. I think it sounds like somebody is describing an intervention scenario.
I know actually exactly what this song is about. Isaac spent some time at a youth camp for troubled teens, and there was a young man that he was paired with, which seemed like an odd statement, that he was supposed to help out, and no matter what he tried, he just couldn't help him, and as you can probably guess, it didn't end so great. He could not save that life.
I read a different story. It's similar. He was paired with this kid who enjoyed crack cocaine, I believe, and cutting himself. But the story I read was that he only spent like a weekend there. I don't think it's about him saying he couldn't save this kid's life. I think he's talking about all the other people in his life that also failed. As Slade says in an interview, the boy's friends and family approached him saying, "Quit taking drugs and cutting yourself or I won't talk to you again." But all he needed was some support.
I did read a quote that said something along the lines of, he wanted to write a manual for how to save a life, which is why this song exists. I didn't get any meaningful instructions out of this.
No. And you know what? I do think it was just a couple of days. In one of the interviews I read, he described his interaction with this kid as, and I'm quoting here, "It was a really inspiring weekend." He's some sort of tourist, a misery tourist, if you will. He just goes around, spends a couple of days with people that are having a shitty time just so he can get song material out of it.
He feeds off your sorrow.
Yes. And blood.
That's probably the whole reason he went to this camp in the first place. I mean, the young and the very old are the easiest to prey upon, as we all know, much like influenza.
God.
Well, no, just much like influenza, the the sorrow vampire, if you will look for those that are most vulnerable and then feed upon their sadness to maintain their youthful vigor. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
I want to work on the name a little bit. Sorrow vampire, sadness vampire.
Sad sucker?
Sad sucker. There it is. I knew sucker was going to be in there.
I just want to associate it with anything other than Tim.
Well, I mean, listen, that doesn't change anything. Tim and or Gordon is a sucker.
Is a sad sucker. Tim is a sad sucker.
I also would like the term sorrow sucker.
Yeah, that's good too.
It's just got a nice literary ring to it. But,
yeah.
You know, if you're putting it into a tweet or an Instagram post, sad sucker is fine. If you want to juice up that next post with a hashtag that says Tim's a sad sucker, I'm not going to complain.
I definitely will.
Yeah, but don't worry about him. He doesn't matter.
Okay, so Genius Lyrics has at the bottom of every song page, comments that people can add. This is where you found the Justin Bieber story, if you remember way back to that, about the guy driving across country and saving his girlfriend who had slit her wrist.
Oh, you're right, yeah. So the suicide section of Genius Lyrics.
It is, and it continues to be. So here's a sample of a few of these comments. I did an essay on this for my English class. It focused on the theme of sexual/emotional abuse and how the narrator is trying to help but doesn't know how. This is a great song if you don't understand the lyrics. It is an amazing song if you do.
Who gets to do an English paper about the Fray? That teacher is doing a terrible job.
No, we did this. In our poetry sections, we would have, instead of our favorite poet.
You're 100% right, Tim. I got confused because I chose myself as my favorite poet.
That's right. Let me read you one more of these. Driving does not save lives, and to train flying is dangerous too. 9/11 happened after your one song of a man who never did land because he was too afraid to fly.
I'm sorry, I honestly don't understand what that guy's talking about.
I don't know, but he's blaming 9/11 on the Fray, and I tend to agree.
But the timeline doesn't even add up.
No, it doesn't. It's 4 years after.
I mean, maybe I missed something. How does this...
Nope, you didn't.
So according to this gentleman, this song is responsible for 9/11.
I think so. I cannot speak for this gentleman, but
I don't want to besmirch the lives lost in a national tragedy. I do, however, want to make sure everyone understands what we're laughing at here.
9/11.
No, what I'm laughing at. What Garrett Garrett's laughing at is not 9/11. Is this guy's crazy conspiracy that the Fray somehow are responsible. Tim clearly laughing about 9/11.
No. I'm laughing because this guy can't spell or form coherent sentences, but seems to have formed a very complex theory.
I don't think it's complex.
No, man. He's saying it's dangerous to allow people into flight training, any people. No one should have flight training. And it appears that 9/11 happened after this song instead of before. So there's a space-time continuum situation here. And the 9/11 hijackers were afraid to fly, and that's why they didn't land. Presumably.
Oh my God, I think you are right. I want to make real clear. I think your interpretation of what he is saying is accurate, but oh my God.
Yes, but that is not that is not
that they
accurate.
were just up there slowly running out of fuel going, I don't know how to get down.
I think so. How
does that have anything to do with how to save a life?
Again, it's unclear, but he seems really adamant
that that's the case?
Yeah.
Okay. So something we haven't talked about is how this song became so gosh darn popular. This thing managed to seep its way into all aspects of media and pop culture, first appearing on an episode of Grey's Anatomy entitled Superstition. I can't tell you anything about that because I've never seen that show. Tim, I assume you're an avid watcher?
It was a good episode, yeah.
Great. Where I do know it from is an episode of Scrubs called My Lunch. I assume you're very familiar as well, Tim.
I am, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about this episode of Scrubs for a minute. I don't know if you remember the episode.
No.
That's great. I was a big Scrub head. A little ashamed to admit that now, but I did in fact love it at the time. In this particular episode, Mad TV's Nicole Sullivan, in a recurring character, returns to the set of Scrubs as a drug addict. But JD continues to blow this young lady off who he views as annoying and a bit of a hypochondriac, until finally he sends her home and she ODs at the end of the episode. Well, good old Dr. Cox, mentor and friend to JD, then advises the young lad that he shouldn't take it so hard and that this is a part of being a doctor. Unfortunately, there's a cruel twist of fate at the very end of the episode when Miss Sullivan's organs are then used for 4 different organ transplants for patients of Dr. Cox. And do you remember what happened to him?
Rabies.
Rabies. Those organs were chock full of rabies. Did you know that's based on a true story?
Yes.
Right here in our... Okay, well...
I know a lot about rabies outbreaks. I am terrified of rabies.
I love that you said that. Just a moment. Just for the folks at home, this is a real thing that happened here in our home state of Texas, where the podcast is based, although we do have satellite locations around the world. Exactly this. A patient who was thought to have died from a cocaine overdose, in fact, had all of his organs transplanted to various people, only to realize, no, it was rabies. Now, Tim, you said you're terrified of rabies, correct?
I am, yes.
This, I kid you not, sometimes I wonder if you've been reading my journal.
I have, yes.
Oh, okay. We'll address that off mics. This is one of my number 1 fears. Having rabies and not knowing it.
You'll know. Oh, God, you'll know.
That guy didn't. Doctors didn't. They thought he died of cocaine.
Well, he did die of cocaine. He didn't
Did he?
die of rabies. He just had rabies.
So he died of a cocaine overdose.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better, but I can't tell you how many mornings I've woke up convinced I have rabies.
Let me ask you this. How many organs have you had transplanted into you?
3.
Oh, you might have rabies.
Is a liver an organ?
Yes, it is.
4.
You might have rabies, Garrett. That is a staggeringly high amount. And if you don't, you have an immune deficiency.
No, I just totally Wolverine that shit.
I don't know what that means.
I just heal myself.
No, you don't. You don't, Garrett. You're dying, possibly of rabies.
That's what I'm saying, man. I might have rabies. I'm terrified of water. My mouth is frothing. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's rabies exactly.
I do like crackers and refuse to drink water.
Well,
you know
no.
what, Tim? You got me off track with all that rabies talk. I didn't even let you know about the B plot of this episode, the reason that it sticks out in my head so much.
Okay.
I almost feel like you know what I'm going to say.
I don't.
So in the B plot, Carla and Elliot finally convince the surgeon, the Todd, that he is a homosexual. After years of trying to figure out why he is the way he is, they manage to convince him to live his truth, only to realize that he is in fact just omnisexual and just wants to bang things. But I was doing a bit of research on this episode just because I'm dealing with a similar situation where I've got a good friend that I feel like he isn't living his full self.
Huh.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, I've tried everything. This guy just doesn't, he just doesn't see it.
You talking about Tyler?
No, I'm not talking about anyone named Tyler.
Well, I don't know, but I don't know.
No, I wouldn't expect you to. So this song, of course, sold 3 million copies.
4.7.
Okay, I don't know where I got these numbers.
I'm telling you, Brad's an idiot.
Brad! Get your cane. Get your cane and go to the caning room. I'll deal with him later.
As we were saying, sold 4.7 million copies, and it was the 4th best-selling single in digital music history.
To this day?
Yes. It was tied for the 7th longest charting single on the Billboard Hot 100 at 58 consecutive weeks. People were buying this
over
for
a year.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into how this whole album did, but just off of 2 songs, they've made so much money.
Right. The first 2 singles have so far sold collectively 7.7 million copies. It was nominated for a Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a duo or group with vocals, and this lost to Danny California by Red Hot Chili Peppers, which, again, is much more respectable to lose to than My Humps.
My humps. My lovely lady lumps.
Yes. They are lovely.
Honestly, Tim, and I loathe the Black Eyed Peas. I am fearful of the day we have to do that album. But I would much rather listen to the Black Eyed Peas than this.
Oh, yeah.
At least at the end, I won't want to hang myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, you ready to move on?
Yes.
Track number 4, All at Once.
Looking for the right one. You line up the world to find.
This was the first song where I really noticed it, although it's not the first song this is the case, where it's just this guy virtue signaling. He wants you to know how good of a person he is, right? On the previous song, he wants you to know how much he cares about that boy he only spent a couple of days with. And on this, you just get all these lyrics like, sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Man, it's so inspirational.
Now, it's funny you should say that you feel like this is him trying to sound like a good guy. I was going to say that this song might back up your theory that this guy's a real asshole.
Oh, no. I think it does. I'm just saying he wants to put out that he's a good guy.
To me, this song sounded like it was an anthem about dreaming of being with somebody else just because you're bored of being with the same person. Kind of like when you and I do this and I dream about doing it with somebody else.
That's rude. And
accurate.
I didn't know that until just now.
I thought we had talked about it.
Oh, we have not.
Well, now we have.
I assumed we would grow old together.
I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm terrible at making new friends. I'm probably locked into this thing, but I'm just saying a lot of times, like when you're speaking, I wish it was somebody else.
Let me be real clear. Your only way out of this is fucking rabies.
I'm going to rabies you up good,
No. Oh my God.
I'm just going to funnel a bunch of rabid badgers into your house. No, I want you to get rabies and not know it. Your rabies is of no use to me if you can just go out and get 5 quick shots in the tummy afterwards.
This has turned out far differently than I'd expected.
The podcast or the episode?
Both. And our friendship, to be honest with you. This is not how...
I always knew it would end with one of us dying of rabies.
Well,
at least one of us.
Yeah. There's another lyric that I was confused about, and it's not actually written in the Genius or the Amazon lyrics, but there's a line in here, perfection will not come, and then there's an instrumental bit, and over the back he says, I will never come.
He totally says, I will never come.
Right. Here's my question. Perfection will not come, I will never come. Is he saying he is perfection, or is he incapable of orgasm?
Both.
Oh, well, then I would argue not perfection.
Perhaps he calls perfection orgasms.
He does not.
Perhaps
no one
he
does.
calls orgasms perfection.
No one does. This is not a thing.
When I climax, I scream perfection.
Yeah, I just scream because what's happening?
Yeah. Guess you have no idea what's going on. I don't know how you even managed to get things started in that arena, knowing that by the end you're going to end up terrified.
It's like how you bravely go out every day knowing that rabies is out there.
Handling stray animals, convinced I can calm them.
Song number 5, Fall Away.
I wrestled with this one big time.
I did too.
It was tough. One of two things is going on here, Tim. Either this is him struggling with the fact that he has drifted away from his teachings of the Jesus and his Christ, or he has done something horrible and is compelled to do it again, and no matter what he does, it follows him and haunts him.
I agree partially with the second one. The lyrics, you left something undone. It's the one thing you can't erase. Something I've done that I can't outrun. Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should run. I think he has done something terrible. I imagine that he was out driving on a dark and snowy Denver night and he ran somebody over and he just kept going. And he hasn't been caught to this day. It's definitely a song about somebody that has done something that he's never going to admit to, but he kind of feels bad that he got away with, but not bad enough to ever admit to.
I feel like you have a tendency to always believe that people have a dark and twisted past full of secrets because of, well, you do. But that could be a reference to the days where he followed the teachings of Christ. And it's always there in the back of his mind, even though he's turned his focus towards money and secular music. Boy, nothing is... If you refer to music as secular or versus religious, we can't be friends.
Yeah.
You made up your mind to leave it all behind. Now you're forced to fight it out. You fall away from your past, but it's following you. I mean, you can't outrun Jesus.
I can.
Although, now I haven't read all of the Bible, Tim. You're pretty steeped in Christ.
I've read it twice, yes.
Can he fly?
It's sort of. He can fly to heaven, but nowhere else.
He can ascend.
Yes.
Does he ever descend?
Not yet, friends. Rapture, not yet.
Oh my God. But in a foot race, he can't just hover.
No. Well, here's the thing. While he has superpowers, he very much plays by the rules of man while he is here.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. Otherwise, why would he let them nail him to that cross?
That's right.
Boy, the Bible's fascinating. Okay, who would win in a foot race? Jesus or the Flash?
The Flash.
Okay. Who can ascend to heaven faster, Superman or Jesus?
Jesus.
Superman could go so fast he made the world go back.
He doesn't know where he's going, though. Superman has not led a moral life.
Whoa, hold on. He fights for truth, justice, and the American way.
Yes.
Ooh,
Have you seen what the American way is lately?
The American way does involve imprisoning children.
That's
these
right.
days, so
Yeah.
Now, you said he doesn't know where heaven is. Is it not up?
Well, it's sort of like the Peter Pan thing. Like, it's up.
Oh, boy.
It's up, but it's a very specific part of up. If you're standing in most of America, up is heaven, yes.
Okay, well... So I guess I see what you're saying. From the Why I Hate This Album world headquarters here in Austin, Texas, if I went straight up, I'm fine. I'm hitting Christ. I'm sorry, heaven.
Well, you might run into Christ.
I'm sitting at the right hand of the Lord.
You are, yes.
Great.
That is your future.
That's not what I've heard. Now, is it all of North America? Is it all of, is it even all of the U.S.? Is it just the contiguous United States, or can I hit heaven from Hawaii?
Not Hawaii.
Yikes. Now, let me ask you last question about this. If Jesus and Superman are standing at the Why I Hate This Album world headquarters and both go straight up, they're going to hit heaven, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Is there a left somewhere?
Well, no, just because Superman doesn't know where heaven is. Only Jesus knows
It's
that.
up.
Well, but he doesn't know, he can't be sure of that. So let's say they both started in China.
Uh-huh.
If they both went straight up, to truly be sure he'll hit heaven, Superman always has to be following Jesus. So there's literally no way for him to win.
That adds up. Track number 6, Heaven Forbid.
This is a continuation of the last song. The narrator, having gotten away with vehicular homicide for 20 years, looks like he's going to get away with it forever, but the guilt is starting to get to him, if I may. 20 years, it's breaking you down. Now that you understand there's no one around, take a breath, just take a seat. You're falling apart and tearing at the seams.
I like that theory. I think it totally adds up. It could definitely be a continued contemplation about the evil deed he committed. Now, whether or not it's vehicular manslaughter still remains to be seen.
Oh, sure. It could be
just
any sort of manslaughter or vehicular
murder.
homicide.
What's clear is that he murdered a person.
Perhaps he did it on purpose. Maybe he was driving on that snowy Denver night and he just thought, that guy kind of looks like Caleb.
I'll write a hit song about it. And he did. Oh my God, Tim. So for me, because I was by this point not even halfway through the album and bored out of my skull, I started to think perhaps this song is about an alternate reality where I never stopped writing that bad poetry.
Oh, or you're rich now instead of what you are.
No, because I don't have any musical talent or drive. Instead, I'm just sitting at home writing this poetry for nobody.
At this point,
And-
have you killed anyone with your car?
No, but to use the exact same lines you just read that I think 100% support your theory that this guy is a murderer.
Allegedly.
Now, allegedly, of course. Now applying the exact same lines to my theory that this is an alternate reality where I just never stopped writing this goddamn poetry and being a whiny asshole. 20 years, it's breaking you down, so 20 years of it. Now that you understand, there's no one around. So now I've finally figured out, oh God, I'm the worst.
And alone.
And I don't have anyone around me.
Will always
Take a
be
breath.
alone. Sorry.
Wait, I'm sorry. What did you just say?
Nothing.
Did you just say I'm always going to be alone?
Yes.
I'm not alone right now.
No, well, I'm always going to be here, but
Oh, no.
as members of our audience have pointed out, we might be the same person. We have the same
Maybe.
voice.
Which is insulting to me.
Right.
I have a rich timbre to my voice.
Right, and I have sort of
Whereas
a
you are
creaky
breathy.
thing. Yeah, I'm breathy. I make a lot of weird mouth noises.
You do have a lot of weird mouth noises.
Garrett does a great job of editing around me. He takes out most of my jokes, but most of my jokes are things we would be
Stupid.
sued for. So
They are inflammatory at best.
anyway, please continue your theory. You're always going to be alone, with the
Yep,
exception
so then
of
I
me.
have to take a breath, just take a seat. You're falling apart and tearing at the seams. It was a cautionary tale that at some point you must put down these childish emotional nonsense and become a hard, callous, hurtful man that cannot let anyone in.
Well, mission accomplished, friend.
Yeah, and I've been winning ever since.
Why won't you hug me?
Because you hug with your pelvis.
I do. I do like a good downstairs hug.
Random Scrubs reference.
No, that's a downstairs high five, I think.
Well, yeah, but same basic principle, friend.
Well, yeah.
Folks, if you can't figure out what we're talking about, just, put your hands on your waist and thrust forward, but then do it 1.5 feet from somebody in front of you as they do it back at you with the downstairs high five.
Sexy.
And that is how you lose a friend.
Or gain it.
Unless you're Tim. That's how you save a life.
There's a lot of stuff on here about ending up alone. So heaven forbid you end up alone. You don't know why. Hold on tight. Wait for tomorrow. You'll be all right. I don't think Leans would approve of this. Presumably he's singing this to a woman, and it is unfair of him to tell a woman she'll never be happy on her own and needs anyone to complete her.
See, I ended up with the exact same conclusion as you. But I thought, this is pretty telling, I guess, of where I'm at emotionally, that the song was to himself. Huh. So I think she would approve. So I guess I was the opposite, sorry. I came up to the opposite conclusion, thinking she would approve as he said, don't worry, friend. You don't need somebody else to define happiness in your life.
Wow, yeah. Also, I want to say that, just so you're not embarrassed, I often mix up the same and opposite as well.
I am striving to have as little in common with you as possible. But seriously, your personality and basic humanity disgust me. This has gotten uncomfortable. Could really use a diversion right now. Brad!
God, that guy sucks.
He's going to get the caning of his life. And we initially could never have caned these guys, but somebody decided to go on strike led by some rabble-rouser, Brad. And now we worked back into the contract a caning for disciplinary issues. It's their own fault, really. Do not cross us.
Yeah, they did really poorly in their negotiations. They should not have gotten Brad to negotiate for them.
In his defense, we blared Florida-Georgia line nonstop for over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That'll drive a man insane.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's move it along. Track number 7, Look After You.
I wish I could go back to 2004 and just tell him, Jesus Christ, dude, move on. She does not want to be with you.
I thought this was a song about how they would always be there for each other.
I don't think so.
I'll look after you?
Yeah, well, so that's more of his patriarchy.
You know, Tim, I fully respect you keeping an eagle eye out there for toxic masculinity and the patriarchy, because Lord knows it's lurking under every rock. But I think you might be overly sensitive in this particular... That retreat you went on with Leans...
Best days of my life.
Right, I'm sure. You guys learned how to make organic tampons together.
We did. I don't need them, but I've hung them about my room from my ceiling, and I believe they keep spirits away.
Well, that's disturbing. But I think in this case, it honestly is just a song about how they'll be there for one another.
Okay.
Now, I can understand how you might have been a little confused, because I found several examples where even the band itself tends to get completely bored with this song. Oftentimes when performing it live, they will just wander into singing Wonderwall by Oasis or James Blunt's You're Beautiful, because their own music makes them bored and sad. Another odd thing is that they began work on a music video for this song, but then after the single performed incredibly poorly, they just sort of gave up.
Good for them. See, that is what we needed more of from this guy at the beginning. This is another life lesson. If everyone says your stuff sucks, if all the radio stations say your stuff sucks, quit. You don't need to put this out.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly say that even though this song is about two people looking after one another, I think it represents such a codependent relationship where they are defining themselves through the other person that Lena Dunham would not approve.
What if it's just the man defining himself through the woman?
No, because I think then you're still placing her in a cage, Tim.
Okay.
A metaphorical
You're right.
cage.
You know what? You're right.
It's a tricky one.
Track 800.
My dog barks incessantly at the opening to this song.
He's right, too.
Apparently the piano sounds remarkably like our doorbell, which he does not like when people ring.
Yeah.
And so he just starts growling every time this song begins. I don't blame him.
I think it starts out with a Berlin Wall reference.
At first I thought the song was an ode to the Berlin Wall.
It was very pro-Berlin Wall.
Yeah, it wouldn't be shocking. Yeah. But it turns out that the whole song is a metaphor about how he's kind of like a cell phone battery.
What?
Because he is somewhere between unsure and 100. This is a classic dog that caught the car situation. He's pined after this girl. I assume they were probably grew up together, and he was locked in the friend zone as he watched several other men bang his good lady friend.
Wait, watched them?
Well, not physically, Tim.
Okay.
Jesus.
You said watch them.
Anyway, he watched them have relationship after relationship as he continued to pine for this girl. Then he finally, after confessing his love repeatedly, wears her down. Probably late into her 30s. She's scared about being alone. Hasn't heard that other song we were just talking about. Doesn't know it's going to be okay without him. And then she says, cool. And here's the lyrics. It's hard, I must confess. I'm banking on the rest to clear away. Because we have spoken everything short of I love you. Right where you are, right where I am, somewhere between unsure and 100. So the 100 means that he's 100% committed or 100% in love.
Okay.
After he finally wore her down, and she says, fine, I will be with you. He's like, oh, whoa, babe, I need some space. There were some other lines in here that I couldn't quite place at first, and then I realized they're strikingly similar to a letter you once wrote me, and there were a couple of things pretty upsetting about that letter. One, you handwrote it.
And I deliver them all personally.
Right, that part was weird too.
I don't trust the postal service. They're like the banks. What do they want all my money and letters for?
We don't have time to get into that.
Into the banks?
Right. 3, why you made me read it to myself while you watched. Well, actually, I think I now understand what that third part was about. But here's the lines in question. And who's to say it's wrong? And who's to say it's not right? Where we should be for now. Tim, first of all, your plagiarism is upsetting.
I wrote that to you in 2004, man. Fuck you.
Are you saying the Fray plagiarized you?
Yes.
Tim, I would like to help you to bring a small claim suit against members of the Fray and represent you as your personal attorney.
I can't see how that could go wrong. I am in. I just interpreted and who's to say it's wrong and who's to say it's not right. I think he believes he has the right to strike a pedestrian that may or may not look like his brother with his car.
You think this might be a continuation?
No, well, I think that he wrote a love song, and in the back of his mind, he was kind of thinking about that time he struck someone with his car.
I doubt it, but I'm not ruling it out. Track number 9, Vienna.
This is the exact same song as 100, exact same song as Look After You, and like 3 other songs on this album.
Yeah. What does this song have to do with Vienna?
I don't know.
I've listened to it probably 20 times, and I really don't know. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate
right
it.
too.
I hate this song. Loosely, this song is sort of about 2 people that are breaking up. The woman doesn't want to, but the man does, and he's saying, hey, it's already over. Quit your whining, get on the train and go to Vienna or leave Vienna. It's unclear. But so many comments I read online say that this song is about 2 people that were meant to be together, but the timing is wrong. Does that happen? Is that a thing?
No. Well, is it a thing in real life? Absolutely. Is there any indication that that's the case in the song? Not so much.
No. Forget the song.
Oh, then yes.
What is that? How does that happen? What do you mean the timing is wrong?
Well, Garrett, you're dating somebody, I'm dating somebody. It's maybe not right now, but at some point I imagine they'll be out of the picture and...
It will never be.
Well, then...
It is you are an abomination.
Then our story continues to be a Greek tragedy.
God. Hey, it's Vienna, friend. Track number 10, Dead Wrong.
This song I do think is about losing his Christian faith.
I love that we are just 2 passing ships in the night on this album. Just as the one that I thought was about him losing his faith, and you thought that it was about this man striking someone with his car and having to live with that, either grief or potentially having to live with the fact of knowing that he can't do it again no matter how satisfying and delicious the whole experience was for him. Here, in this song, I believe that this song is about him having started to do the bad thing again, and his lady is terrified because she doesn't think he can stop. My evidence is, so I was dead wrong all along. You said it for my sake that you thought I lost my way. Did I really lose my way, or are you afraid?
So let me read to you the lines that I thought represented his loss of his Christian faith.
All right.
So I was dead all along. You said it for my sake that you thought I'd lost my way. Did I really lose my way?
Boy, once again, it's just wildly unclear who the song is to and about, because I think that he's saying to his lady, are you afraid? And that he's saying she told him he had lost his way, but he is insisting, I did not lose my way. I have found the true path, and it is to take the souls of others, for I am the sorrow sucker.
Oh, hashtag sorrow sucker. I interpreted this entire thing as an internal monologue.
Oh, see, I envisioned it as an argument after she discovers what he claims is the third deer he's hit.
Why is your car always so bloody? It's not important.
Damn deer.
There's some lyrics that I thought could relate, actually, now that I think about it, to either of these. Mine is not a new story. Mine is nothing new, but it is for me. It could either be a lot of people have
a murderous rage brewing inside them that can only be satiated with the taking of lives.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't have said it so confidently, but yes. A lot of people lose their faith. So, that's a potential interpretation as well. Or possibly, gotta reference Joseph Cambell here, he's living essentially the same story that everyone else has ever come before him has lived, and this is played out many times. It's nothing new, but it is new to him because he is on his hero's journey. This also sounded a lot like a Wallflower song.
Oh, yeah. Jacob Dylan, your father is disappointed in you.
Oh.
What he is.
But the Bringing Down the Horse, man, that was a great album.
What are
Do you not
how
love
do you know
Bringing Down the Horse? This was an album that was available for sale in Saudi Arabia, so I know it intimately.
For $1 million, I couldn't have told you a Wallflowers album, and you had that thing ready to go in the chamber.
I love the Wallflowers.
We should definitely add that to the list.
It might be a good album. I don't know.
Track number 11, Little House. All right, Tim, we're almost done with the whole album, but we've read so many lyrics, maybe more lyrics from this album than we have any other on the show, because they're just so stupid, and they are the height of high school poetry. So I have made a selection. I think it could be the first single for Bottomless Soup. For anyone who's new to the show, in high school I was the worst, and I apparently wrote poetry. And upon finding albums like this one, I like to take a reading from this tome to help illustrate an insecure 16-year-old Garrett could write lyrics that were as good, if not better, than this shitty band. For this week, I have selected something called Desolate. Composed when I was 16 years old, desolate. I sit alone. I look, I stare. I look around, but no one's there. Empty is the love that I once had known. Empty are the feelings. Now I sit alone. Empty are my thoughts, not stupid nor smart. Alone am I always, empty in my heart. Tim,
Let's take a short pause so I can hug you. There it is.
Don't touch me.
You've been hugged by Tim. So read back the line about how you used to have this love. Read.
I did take some artistic license for sure.
Okay. That was going to be my question.
Longtime listeners in the show, the love in this poem might have been the young lady whom I had read several other poems to in an effort to woo her. And you tell me if this sounds like a loving relationship. I saw her every Saturday when I picked up bagels for the running store I worked at. Not yet? Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was supposed to continually say no throughout all this. Go ahead. No, not yet.
I read her several poems in a public forum when I was asked to pick my favorite poet and recite his poetry.
Nope.
I bought her an extravagant gift for her birthday and gave it to her when she was locked in my car one rainy afternoon.
Not the way you're saying it that way, no.
And
oh my God.
And then she never ever spoke to me again.
Yeah, definitely not. Read the line though. The specific line of you having had this love that you've lost or that will never be here again or something.
Empty is the love that I once had known. Empty are the feelings as I sit alone.
Okay, it could potentially be. Oh wow, man! I need a genius annotation on this. Is it? It's just your feelings. It's not an actual love that you had.
Are you familiar with the term straw man argument?
Yes.
For anyone listening that's a little confused, that's basically where you construct an opposition's argument for the sheer idea of then defeating that person's argument. It's how most cable television news is presented nowadays.
Yes.
I think that we had a bit of a straw man girlfriend, or girlfriend made of straw.
So you constructed some sort of
Scarecrow.
Physical replica
Right.
of this girl that you then,
Broke up with.
we'll say, practiced kissing.
Are you implying that I made a life-size doll to have intercourse with?
Practiced kissing.
And by kissing you mean...
We like to keep this show PG, so practice kissing, but, you know, yeah.
That kid was banging that dummy.
Sure was, friend.
No. It's the love I felt for her that was unrequited.
This one's a thinker.
It isn't.
Generations in the
We'll
future.
debate.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely not the case.
No, because think about this. Once most of the U.S. is turned into radioactive dust, all that will be found in the rubble is your book of poetry. And so they will assume that you were a great influence on your time, when really... My point is, it's really, really bloody.
Tim, I explained the blood.
You did. Not satisfactorily.
Well, that's all you're going to get. I feel like the listeners got a really skewed perception of this thing. There's barely any blood on it.
There is enough blood that there's no way that you bled that amount all at once.
You're ridiculous. Shut up.
Song 12, Trust Me. This entire song is just filled with these patronizing lines. I feel for Caleb. Isaac seems like he was possibly the worst older brother imaginable.
I think we've already settled that argument.
Because of the striking him with his car?
Well, that aside, and we don't know that happened. We know he murdered somebody, whether or not he used a car.
Allegedly. We do not know that. We have strong suspicions based on what he has written. He once killed and will kill again. Right. And again, that's in 2005, so chances are, if he was struggling with it that much at that point, he has in fact killed again. As far as we know, he's never killed anyone.
Right.
Or even thought about killing anyone.
But guys, we totally know this guy's a killer. Yeah, so this song's about him breaking up with a girl or possibly his brother again. Boy, I really don't care about this song.
Yeah, we could be done. I have no use for this album.
Yeah, I could talk about what it's about, but honestly, who cares?
It's not about anything. Any meaning that you put into this is exactly that. It's just something you're assigning to it.
Yeah, so track 12 is about tracks 1 through 11.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
All right, Tim, let's get to the frustrating part of this episode. How much money did this fucking thing make?
A lot. It made a lot of money. This was certified double platinum in the US. It reached number 14 on the Billboard 200. Only number 50 on the Dutch mega charts, but Billboard put it at number 21 on their list of best digital albums of the decade. It was, for a while, the best digital selling album of all time.
Wow. Let's move it along to reviews. What do the critics have to say?
It was pretty mixed, actually. So a lot of like 3 to 4 star ratings.
Okay.
One notable, really high ranking was Jesus Freak Hideout. They gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, saying How to Save a Life is nearly perfect. Nearly every song's message contains key values and life lessons.
Okay, if you say so, Jesus Freak Magazine.
We do have 275 Amazon reviews. It was 4 out of 5 star on average.
Wow.
And 87% were 4 to 5 stars. Review the first. This is by Trix, Trix. This is the best thing to come out of Denver. The Fray is a Colorado band. Considering Colorado is the most boring place you could ever live, believe me, I've lived here all my life, it strikes me as amazing that a band that people are saying is the next big things to hit the airwaves came from here. Being from Denver, I was one of the lucky ones who got wind of this band first. The Fray is compelling, with oodles of talent and an amazing CD. I am proud to be one of the first Fray fans. I'm just going to say this. The Fray sucks. Colorado does not suck.
Yeah. This guy's just got it all backwards. Maybe he meant to write a review about Colorado and did a find and replace or something, and instead accidentally talked up the Fray and badmouthed Colorado. What else you got?
All right. This is by Aeropause, and it's called The Beauty of Contrived Introspection.
I like this person.
Guaranteed, the Fray will not be receiving much critical acclaim, nor is it even realistic to think they will be a name that will stay around for long. But hey, it's a no-strings-attached listening experience that's good now and then. And, pardon if this is rude, I'll remove it as asked, but did anyone else mistakenly think they sung How to Beat Your Wife instead of How to Save a Life? Made me worried at first, but I'm glad I was wrong.
Wow. No. I mean, I've misheard lyrics before, but that's way off base. I think this guy's got beaten on the brain.
One more. This is called Beware, Once is Too Much, 1,000 Times is Never Enough. This album is totally addictive, mesmerizing. I first became aware of the Fray when I heard Vienna used as a background for a montage of Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet on YouTube. Okay.
What an odd sentence. I've seen Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. It's terrible.
I bought a copy for myself and one for my niece, who is also a musician. She is 18. I am 48. My 13-year-old son borrows mine all the time. Every tune is exceptional. The songs are easy-flowing rock with absolutely no offensive lyrics. I like to boost my car stereo up so high my mirror vibrates, but I can only do it when I'm alone in the car. You must own this CD.
What a creep. Okay. This has been horrible. Do we even want to talk about who this is for?
I mean, sure, why not?
All right.
I would argue Zach Braff, definitely.
Oh,
He
yeah.
loves this band.
Anybody who loves the CW.
Also Derek Jeter.
Huh? Derek Jeter loves this album?
That's just a random fact I happen to know about him. He is a huge fan of this album.
Where do you have this info from?
Derek Jeter?
Jeter himself told you.
Well, he didn't tell me. He told Brad. Brad called it. Damn it,
Yeah.
Brad! I don't know if Derek Jeter actually likes this. That may have been Brad playing a prank.
All right, Tim. Final thoughts.
This is just so pretentious and self-serious. This is the kind of thing they should be embarrassed of at this point, but they clearly hold it up as some sort of singular achievement, and apparently a good portion of our society does as well. I just don't get the love of this album. If it kept you from killing yourself for some reason, that's great. They did a good thing. But I would bet that for every person that didn't kill themselves, there was at least one person that did kill themselves specifically because of this album. It's hard to get the statistics on those, though, because those people aren't around to comment on the internet.
Yeah, they're dead.
Overall, it looks like a net win. I don't think it actually is.
I agree. We're not even including the countless people that have likely been mowed down by a suspicious high-end model vehicle with a driver matching the description of one Isaac Slade. Between the vehicular manslaughter and
Alleged.
the people... I'm not attributing it to anybody. I'm just saying, coincidentally, in his neighborhood, there's been a rash of vehicular manslaughter cases that have been unsolved.
Allegedly.
Sure. Guys, we totally... It's definitely... I mean, I was in a terrible mood after the end of this. This was a slog. Folks, I hope that we were able to make it at least a little entertaining for you. Tim.
Yeah.
Do you hate this album?
I do. What
That's
about
fair.
you?
Yes, I do. This album sucks.
Yeah, I would just like to say at this point, I got you there. I mean, I had a lot of help from the Fray, but we got you there. Isaac, Joseph, the drummer, some other guy, we all got you there.
I'm going to give you less credit this week for getting me there. Like I said, I was right at the precipice. I was basically there.
Right.
You got me to completion, completely there. You got me completely there.
I always do.
Right. Well, you're a generous man.
Jesus Christ.
All right. Little housekeeping as always, guys. Thank you so much for the comments. We need more. I hate to keep asking, but we need more ratings on iTunes. We got a nice big flurry of them, and we got a whole bunch of new listeners because it propped us up in the ratings and a bunch of folks saw the show. We need more. Some great suggestions if you don't know what to write. Tim's a sucker. Gordon's a sucker. Tim's a sorrow sucker. Gordon's a sorrow sucker. Tim Antword. Where's Tim Antword? Am I leaving anything out, Tim?
Tim Antword sucked my sorrow.
Ooh, that's a great one. But they really do help us out. Every time we move up in the rankings, we get a whole bunch of new listeners, and then we can pester them to give us new rankings, and you can see how this whole Ponzi scheme sort of works. Aside from that, reach out to us. We get great comments all the time. We're on Facebook, facebook.com, hatepod, hatepod.com. There's a contact us up in the upper left-hand corner. If you don't want to go there, just straight from your email, hatePodMail@gmail.com. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Recommend albums. If you have any ridiculous stories, theories about some of these songs, about some of these artists, we'd love to hear your theories. I mean, this is just Tim and I working solo. If you have insight into these bands, let us know. Can you confirm or deny any of the things that we have presented today?
His soul sucking, for example.
Right. Album HatePod on Twitter, HatePod on Instagram. This has been Why I Hate This Album. I am one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey.
I'm the other, Tim Richardson.
The riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that we has passed. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.